to the internet as well. This reading is from Whispers from Eternity by Ananda, entitled, I vow never again to turn my gaze from thee. I take this sacred vow. Never will I lower my love's gaze below the eyebrow horizon of my constant thoughts of thee. Never will I turn my uplifted inner sight away from thee. I will disdain the nightmare of ignorant behavior. I will court all dreams of noble achievement, those of love, kindness, and understanding, for they are thy dreams. Though I dream many dreams, wakefully, I will ever think of thee in the sacred fire of constant remembrance, kept ever alight on my soul's altar. I will ever behold thy presence with the watchful eyes of devotional love. Thy grace has shown me that the dualities of health and disease, life and death, joy and sorrow, are but passing fantasies. I am finished with those eternally self-canceling delusions. I am persuaded at last that there is but one abiding reality, thy eternal, ever-conscious, ever-new, ever-thrilling, infinite bliss. And from the New Path, Nayaswami Haridas, this is drawn from the chapter in the Bhagavad Gita. One weekend, Mrs. Harriet Grove, the leader of the SRF Center in Gardena, California, came out uninvited with James Collier to see Master. Not knowing where his retreat was, she found it by pure intuition. Turn left here, she told James, who was driving. Turn right there. Then suddenly, stop. This is it. And so it proved to be. This is the afternoon, Master told her when she arrived, that I usually go out for a ride in the car. But I knew you were coming, so I stayed home. Master, James said that weekend, I have such a great longing for God. Why does it take so long in coming? Ah, Master replied with a blissful smile. That is what makes it all the sweeter when he does come. Such is his romance with a devotee. In the evenings, Master exercised by walking slowly around his retreat compound. Generally, he asked me to accompany him. He was so withdrawn from body consciousness on those occasions that he sometimes had to lean on my arm for support. He would pause, swaying back and forth, as if about to fall. I am in so many bodies, Master remarked to me one day, as I returned slowly to body consciousness. It is difficult to remember what body I am supposed to keep moving. Boone visited 29 Palms for a short time. Accompanying Master and me one evening on our walk, he asked many questions concerning spiritual matters. You shouldn't talk to me when I am in this state, Master said finally. The deepest wisdom he was implying is beyond words. It must be experienced in the silence of inner communion. But when he did speak, his words during those days were filled with a wisdom rarely to be found in books. At such times he would remind me, write my words down. I don't often speak from this level of impersonal wisdom. More and more. From this time onward, he began to speak, not as a humble devotee of God, but as one whose consciousness was saturated with the ultimate realization, Aham Braham, Asmi, I am Spirit. And so with a sacred occasion like Diwali, the Festival of Light, it is very important for us to take advantage of these times during the year where we can shake ourselves awake from this very, very powerful hypnotic dream. And if ever we court a little bit of discouragement here and there because of trials and karma that is bursting upon our consciousness, we have to keep in mind that this Maya has been created by God and animated by God, and so of course it's powerful. But you know, in a way, if we want to think of it a little bit differently, you might say that it really is God's confidence in us that we have the strength to endure all of this nonsense and all of these tests and all of these trials and so many that are bittersweet. He has confidence. Why? Because we've come from God and we're children of God. And so why shouldn't he feel that in time, because this is the ultimate truth, that after this labyrinth, after this experience, after this school of experiences, we will emerge and there will not be one that will be disappointed. If you can find a saint that's disappointed, as Swami used to tease, that there isn't a saint that says, now that I found God, it was just a sham. Not one, you'll never find one. Never. And I've been meditating recently on why they come back, these great saints, when after enormous struggle that we can't even imagine that they have had to undergo, they come back. Why would they come back? They don't have to come back. As a matter of fact, some don't. And that's fine. You just say, enough is enough. And they have merged into God, and there they are. But some of the great saints, they do come back because they know that it is a very, very potent Maya. And so when we have occasions like this, these festivals of light, then it's very important that we remember we are that light. And that we simplify our sadhana. That we do things neti, not this, not that. When I first stumbled upon that in the early years, I thought, that's for me. Not this, not that. Not this, not that. Just the light. There's a delightful story which we share from time to time, and I always love to tell this story because it really drives a very important point home. There was this king, and I think he was probably highly advanced, but I don't know. And he had a minister who he particularly doted upon, and other ministers as well. And so the ministers that weren't being doted upon as much, perhaps they were thinking, what is this? He should appreciate us all equally, and no doubt he did. But anyway, there was this seeming favorite. And so he thought, well, I'm going to test them. And so what he did is he created, from one village to the next, many, many tents along the road. And in these tents, he had many, many things that were very tempting. And there was all kinds of delicious food and games to play, and on it went. And so he asked his ministers, I have an errand for you to fetch in the other village this particular thing. Please come back right away and bring it to me. And so the ministers thought, good enough. And so as they took off, they began to see there were a lot of nice things, and perhaps they were hungry, and maybe they were a little tired. So they thought, well, pop into this tent and maybe get some nimbu pani, and they stayed a little longer than they had thought. And then, they thought, oh, I have to hurry on. Maybe they looked at their watch or looked at the sun to get a gauge of the time. And then they went a little further, and there was another tent. And in that tent, there was something else that they thought was what they needed. Who knows what it was? And then they went, and again stayed a little longer. Well, the minister, the favorite, he didn't pay any attention to his thirst, perhaps, that was growing, or his hunger. None of that. He went straight to the village, did what he was told to do, picked up the thing that the king was wanting, and came back immediately in record time. And some never came back. And others came back very, very, downcast, because they could see that they had been tested and they had failed the test. And so for us, really, in a way, that's what we have. We're going, to this place. And of course, time and space are an illusion, but here we are in this world of duality. So we have this seeming place, which is heaven, which is to return back into the fold. But Divine Mother, because she loves her Maya, she loves it to pieces. And there's many things one can read in the autobiography of a yogi, for instance, to give us this thought of how much God loves his Maya. When finally we're free of the physical plane, and we have nirvikalpa samadhi, which is a permanent state of consciousness, we will never fall from that. You would think that would be enough. But God has tricked his children, said, you know something, now that you have this state, it really doesn't really matter to attain those higher states. The states that take us to the astral world, to free ourselves of astral karma, and the causal world, subtler still, to free ourselves, till finally we become completely free avatars. So the thought is, now that you have nirvikalpa samadhi, it doesn't really matter. And I thought, what is this? He has an ice cream cone. It's not just a single scoop, it's 3 scoops. It's the material plane, it's the astral plane, it's the causal plane. He's not satisfied. He wants more. And then I thought, okay, fair enough. And then I read in The Resurrection of Sri Yukteswar. If you haven't read that in the autobiography, highly, highly recommended. And in there, Sri Yukteswar is in charge of all of those that have gotten to the point where they have achieved nirvikalpa samadhi, or they're a temporary guest and they're there for a little bit, but most no doubt are permanent. And they are working on helping us in our salvation. And we probably have friends up there. I don't think probably. Undoubtedly we do, and they're done. So we should pray to them too, along with the saints. Hey, Vivek and Lakshmi, please, keep working on my sad case because, I'm sick and tired of this. I want to go home. And then I read further on that with these highly advanced souls that have nirvikalpa samadhi, if they foul up with cosmic law, they feel keen pain. I thought, well, okay, wait a minute. Let me rewind. Once we're in nirvikalpa samadhi, we have so much power, we could go right on through and have our final graduation. Done with our karma astrally, done with our karma causally. Why would we hang out in the astral world? We've been tricked again. Incredibly tricked again. And so we take who knows how long to get through all of this. And I thought, God really does love his Maya. He loves his Maya so much. We get through one very thick veil, a material plane. What an incredible achievement to get through to the point where we know we're the light. And then there's more and more. My God, incredible, absolutely incredible. But we don't have to worry about that right now. We have to just work on the first project, high school. Let's get our high school diploma. Then we can go and get our undergraduate and graduate and be done with it all. But one step at a time. And so, at a time like this, where people are celebrating, not only, you Indians, of course, are everywhere. So when I picked up a newspaper and found that Diwali was really big in England, in London, I thought, wow, that's great. And then somewhere else, God knows, Argentina, I have no idea. You guys are just all over. What a great message. What a great message. So that we can keep in mind that servant of the king, the minister, who paid no attention to all of the attractions on both sides. He went and got what was needed, and he came back. Now that we have pierced the veil sufficiently, that we have the knowledge of the inner life, which is light, which is joy, and all of the divine qualities we're seeking, this is the time not to spend time with all of these side attractions. And so when we think of light, then it becomes really easy in simplifying our sadhana that we can think in terms of thoughts. When thoughts come, are they of the light? Or are they of the other, the shadow? When feelings come, are they of the light? Or are they of the shadow? And on it goes. In our seva, in all that we do, is this the light? And in that way, it doesn't become as difficult. Because we know that when a thought comes, a thought, of worry or whatever it might be, then we feel the cramping there of the heart, the constriction of the heart. Does that speak of light? Of course not. We'd have to be fools to think, oh, this thought of worry is giving me light. We'd be crazy. It's not that at all. We're shrinking. We are falling asleep even more in this dream. And so when we think in terms of light, and this is very, very helpful. Isn't that wonderful of the yogis to say, oh, by the way, now that you've gotten fairly interested in progressing, I've got a shortcut for you. Be here. And if you forget, plunk on a bindi, or throw in some tiger balm, and that'll, keep you focused. Now we know. Now we know that the achievement, what we're trying to achieve, is that inner stillness, such that the light does form. That five-pointed star within the blue field, within the gold ring, the spiritual eye. We go through the light. We go through that star, and then we find, once again, we're in that blissful state of consciousness. And so challenge, because that's very, very important. Challenge again and again. Where is my consciousness? Am I in the light? Or has the shadow taken over, remembering that God is really enjoying His Leela? And I often think to myself, because we will all arrive across the finish line at the same time, even the saints that have arrived maybe millions of years ago, because again, time and space are an illusion. As Yogananda said, nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. It's a complete dream. But again, as Yogananda said, and we share often, if you hit your dream head on a dream wall, you experience dream pain. And so after a while we think, I think that's hitting home. Let's see if we can do something about that. And so we begin to think in terms of, as Yogananda recommended, plain living and high thinking. Thinking of light. And more, seeing the light in all. So that when perhaps we get into that foolish state where we think, oh, I know that person. I have an uncle just like them. They're this type. That's not going to broaden the light in the heart. That's going to shrink the heart. And so we think, no, let me look a little bit more closely. And as we look a little bit more closely, then more and more we're able to see this individual is a light. As Yogananda himself said, if you could see how beautiful you all are, you are all light. Was he making that up? He wasn't making that up. The saints don't do that. You are light. And so as we find, this trek, again, seeming a little long, then we have to think in terms of, I can't pay any attention with anything that doesn't keep me on the razor's edge, the straight and narrow. Whatever I can do to stay in the light, I want to do. And that's why Yogananda was so strong in World Brotherhood colonies, because he wanted to gather together. After all, in this world there are so many communities, but are they all communities of light? Well, that's a question. Sometimes you go into a town and you do feel a real light there, and it's very uplifting. Other times you go through a town, you think, I needed to stop for some food, but I think I'm going to pass. Step on the accelerator. Who knows, maybe there was a war there. Who knows, some kind of disharmony. And so we become very, very sensitive. That's why Yogananda said environment is stronger than willpower. So Yogananda spoke very strongly of World Brotherhood colonies, and they come, of course, in many forms. The ideal, of course, is to have land and have places where we could work and serve, and schools for the children, all of that. And of course, in time, we would like that to be here in Bangalore and many other places. But also, community can be in your own home, in your own heart, in the workplace. And we can be instruments for that light, because our colleagues, our friends, our relatives need that light. And they may not understand us. Even in India, many times we'll hear as people talk to us, I didn't tell my roommates I was going to this yoga class. I said I had an appointment. I just heard that a few days ago. Another lady said, it took me 6 years to convince my parents that I needed to change my career. God, 6 years, that's a long time. And I congratulated her for being so patient. 6 years. I'm still going to be making money, Mom and Dad, I'm still going to be doing something meaningful, and on it goes. 6 long years. India does very well with this lila around parents and the kids. We get endless joy, and also it's some tears too, with all that goes on around in this culture. But of course, you could go to America and you could have some fun too with some of the odd things that we do as well. But the main thing is to be with people that remind you of the light. Have those thoughts. Yogananda talked about citizens in our own minds and hearts and so forth in our consciousness. Those citizens need to be citizens of light. Every time that we emerge from our home, even before, as we're waking up, better still, let us affirm that we are immortal, that we are light, that we're spirit. Because otherwise, the ego, the maya, our karma, wants to drone on with the very, very strong thought that we're anything but that. And it's very convincing. There'll be the thought, you said you were light, but gee, that looks like a hand to me and fairly dense. You're really a body. So this light stuff, okay, fine. The saints perhaps have achieved these high states, but it's going to be wild. All of this is something to avoid like poison. It's not what we want. And so, as we go into our day, then see what you can do to see the light. The eyes are the windows of the soul. And make it a campaign. Look for light, and you will find it, especially here in India. You will find light coming out of so many, many people. And for those that perhaps are a bit dimmer in consciousness, then share your light. And so in that way, you're either looking for light, or you're sharing light, or doing both. And so more and more we find, as the instrument is blessed by that which flows through it, that we can be instruments for the light. And as we're able to do this, we start to see that our thoughts are transformed. Maybe we have all kinds of challenges with our own mind. The mind is as hard to harness as the wind. But as we focus on loving God, as we focus on the light, we find that our thoughts begin to fall miraculously into alignment. And all of the thoughts that were orbiting around our consciousness that were doing us no good begin to dissipate. And the blockages of the heart and all those things, and we were having such a tough time trying to break through the sledgehammer, the concrete of our own heart, by staying in the light, by staying in tune. We find more and more we walk around with an open heart, and on it goes. I call this a miracle, because it is. It's the miracle of transformation, and it does take work. Remember, the harvest is plenteous, one of my favorite sayings in the Bible, but the laborers are few. The harvest is plenteous, the harvest of light, of joy. That is there, awaiting our discovery. And is it that difficult? Yogananda said one time, I believe it's in Divine Romance, a collection of many of his talks, that finding God is easy. And I was so thrilled by it many, many years ago. I was giving a talk down in Northern California at our center there, and I decided to print out that saying, finding God is easy, in little, like the little business cards. It was a little an eccentric thing to do. And then I passed them out to everybody. And from time to time, we have these traveling satsangs. I remember one time I went into someone's house and I saw it on the refrigerator. I thought, that's good. If just one made it to the refrigerator, finding God is easy, then that's good. That was a good seva. That was a good project. And so lubricate your sadhana with the easy things, the things that you already perhaps are strong in. Maybe it's devotion, maybe it's chanting. Push that along. Push that along. And those things that need work on them, of course. But don't let them discourage you. Don't get overwhelmed by taking on too many projects inwardly. Because again, this is a big project, and that came from the Master. Granted, it's a big job, he said. And yet at the same time, page 2 says, God comes like a thief in the night. So read page 2 more often than page 1. You know, it's a big job. Oh my God. No wonder I've been bogging down. Finding God is easy, page 2. I am light, page 2. All of those things that will keep your vibration strong, keep your aura strong, so strong that you will be able to share effortlessly with all those who cross your path. That is our duty. That is our highest duty, that we keep our consciousness uplifted in the light so that we have a surplus of energy to share with others, because many need it. We know that. As when we are down, we need it. I can't tell you how many times during the day as I walk around here on errands and so on, I'm healed by, the clerk or by a passerby, and I just look at their face and there's this very sweet smile, and I think inwardly, thank you for that. I needed it. I don't know where I was, but I was obviously somewhere. It was of no benefit to me spiritually. You helped me. And they perhaps will never know, but on one level they will, because we're one spirit in all forms. As Yogananda said in this wonderful reading of the Path, it's so hard to keep this one body moving. In that consciousness, which we will attain in time, that will be our problem, and that's a problem we want. That we are that one spirit in all form. We are that one light. So, happy Diwali. If you had fun blowing off firecrackers and things like that, that's good. We thought we did fairly well because, 10ish or so, it was fairly reasonable. We're in Delhi. My gosh, I think that they finished off maybe the next morning at 6. So, yay, Bangalore. I don't know, maybe out of compassion for the dogs or something like that. I don't know what, but it was something that we appreciated, so we could spend more time on the light and less time on the bombs going off. But again, such is the fun of this world, this great mixture of light and shadow, but stay in the light.